The following program, The Russ Belville Show, is intended for responsible adults only. We advocate to the repeal of marijuana prohibition for adults. We discuss the science, culture, and controversy about America's marijuana laws. We do not advocate any illegal activity and encourage all listeners to learn their state and federal marijuana laws. Opinions and claims made by guests and advertisers on The Russ Belville Show are their own, and The Russ Belville Show cannot be held legally responsible for their validity or reliability. Viewer discretion is advised.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
From the promise of legalization.
And I think that we need to rethink and decriminalize our marijuana.
To the agony of prohibition.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
The Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation. Brought to you by the National Cannabis Coalition.
Yeah, I hear you had a question for me.
Now, here's your host, Radical Russ Belville.
All right, good day, tokers and tokettes, and welcome. It is Wednesday, August 1st, 2012, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. My God, we made it to August already. Here in Portland, Oregon, we made it all the way to August. We've made it all the way to August without a single 90-degree day. It's just weird, I gotta tell you. And I know a lot of folks out there all across the country are currently suffering through triple digits for, weeks. So we wish we could export some of this to you and get you some cool air, get you some rain. But at least here we can bring you the latest news and information for the cannabis community. Maybe perk your spirits up a little bit that way. Joining us here in the studio, over here on camera too, we've got Wiz Kaliko. Hi, Kaliko. How you doing?
Well, doing quite well. Oh, sorry.
No, you're there.
Well.
Glad to have you here. And Kaliko's been uncovering all sorts of news stories for us that we're going to get to in hour two. I just briefly looked at that one with the 21-year-old that got
apparently a 21-year-old handcuffed in the back of a police car managed to commit suicide with a gun. But also, I want to thank you for posting my blog up on the Huffington Post, of course, about our interview with Stephanie Lee last week. And it seems to be doing quite well over there on the Huffington Post Sports page. Yeah,
we put it on Huffington Post Sports. They got it posted up there, starting to get some comments. If you haven't seen it, I'm sure Kaliko will get that tweeted out on the RB Show 420 Twitter account, so check that out. Also over here in the engineer chair and managing the Skype connection, we've got Ganja John hanging out there.
What's up? It sounds like you're saying Arby Show, like Arby's, like the restaurant. So let's be clear, RB Show.
RB Show 420. And I actually separated my Twitter accounts now, so Radical Russ Twitter feed, if you're following that, is going to be solely my personal account, and then RB Show 420 is going to be all the posts from the show and all that kind of stuff that you need. So follow that one for the latest information. Speaking of Skype in our virtual studio, we've got Carrie Gallagher, our news director, out there on Skype. Hi, Carrie.
And crew,
how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. We're always 10 degrees cooler than you, so I'm not even sure if we've had an 80-degree day here in Astoria.
I know. It's just weird what's happening here in the Pacific Northwest.
It's good out here. It means that we have one set of clothes. There's no, removing your winter clothes and bringing out your summer clothes. Just one set. We keep it simple.
That's right. Here in Portland, you could have a utilikilt and a hoodie, and I think you could make it through the whole season. All right. Well, Carrie brings us our Cannabis Chronicle, our daily headlines in the world of marijuana law reform. So what's in the news today, Carrie?
I do it that. First up, we've got a few more dispensaries I want to tell you about the closure, plus a rally today over those closures. Also, a follow-up on a story that we brought to you a couple of weeks ago about that Ohio teen that they are calling a drug kingpin. And also, we're going to go to Michigan, where we've got a ruling that came out today that falls in our favor, or at least those that are advocates of medical marijuana. I'll tell you all about those coming up in today's Cannabis Chronicles.
All right, looking forward to that. Also, today is Irie Wednesday for our Daily Toker Tunes. We're going to turn turn things over to Wiz Khalico today for the Irie Wednesday tune. Who do we have today?
We got my boy Sia Osi featuring John Maoli, and it's his new song, All I Need, which is on his forthcoming album that he's working on in the studio currently, but a single that he's just released, so we're going to be bringing it to you on today's Toker Tunes.
All right, looking good. And Irie Island Hour later tonight, 8 o'clock Pacific time, if you want to check that out. Also, we've got on today's show Dr. Mitch Earlywine with our cannabis Q&A, so you can get into the chat room or call us live and ask your cannabis questions. And at the end of the show, we're going to analyze legalization here in Oregon with Measure 80. Stick around. We'll be right back.
You're tuned into the Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation. Support the Russ Belville Show. Text the word Russ to 420-420 and connect with the National Cannabis Coalition. You can also send $10 to the Russ Belville Show right from your smartphone. That's Russ to 420-420. You're listening to Radical Russ on the Russ Belville Show. I have a package here for Radical Rick. Is there a Radical Rick here? How about a Rick Russ? Any Rick Russ? Somebody named Freddie Farrock has sent him a package. Anybody? What is that? Smells like a skunk. Marijuana is not going to re-legalize itself. You've got to do your part. Join the National Cannabis Coalition today at nationalcannabiscoalition.com. Medical marijuana, industrial hemp, ganja sacrament, consumer cannabis. The topic of marijuana is heating up the news, and the Russ Belville Show catches you up with today's latest headlines. Now, here's our senior news editor, Cannabis Carey, with the Daily Cannabis Chronicle.
San Francisco has had less problems with their dispensaries in Los Angeles, but this last year has been especially hard on the dispensary industry in the Bay Area. First, we had the raid on Richard Lee's famed Oaksterdam, and then we had the largest dispensary in the state, Harborside Health Clinic, firmly in the crosshairs of those U.S. attorneys. Now, two more prominent and well-known medical marijuana dispensaries in San Francisco closed their doors today in the continuing crackdown. Both HopeNet and the very popular Vapor Room announced that they were shutting down in response to a threatening letter to their landlords by the attorneys acting as federal agents. The Vapor Room has been a very popular dispensary and social lounge since they opened their doors back in 2004. Catherine Smith, who along with her husband founded HopeNet back in 1998, has spent much of her time at the 9th Street store, where she has been since 2003. Her business was often pointed out by medical marijuana advocates as an example of a legitimate medical marijuana business working within the city laws. Smith worked along with city officials and also served on San Francisco's medical marijuana task force. She helped craft the city's historic marijuana ordinance. She said that the Justice Department had sent her landlord a letter, so they had to go. She said that it is now hard to believe that the activists did all those things and accomplished so much in the city only to be shut down in 2012. Smith said that while they may try to hang on to their delivery services, she's not too optimistic about finding another location. Her initial search proved to her that the word is out about the Justice Department hassling landlords now. She said that the real estate people will no longer deal with marijuana businesses. She watched yesterday as customers she has known for more than a decade hugged and said goodbye to each other. It's estimated that the Justice Department has sent out over 600 threatening letters to landlords who rent space to medical marijuana businesses all over California since since November. In response to the immediate closure of 2 more of the famed and city-licensed San Francisco marijuana clubs, today at 4 p.m. in about an hour, advocates are planning a mock funeral procession along with a somber marching band and coffins bearing the names of the most recent closures. They are meeting at the corner of Haight and Steiner and will march to the federal building for a press conference that begins at 5 p.m. They are asking participants to wear black.
Yeah, we've got some people in our chat room that have been talking about this as well, that they're just catching the headlines right now, and then they're going to head out there to the Haight Street the location for this march. Again, Carrie, can you give us the location again?
It's Haight and Steiner, but if you miss where they pick up, you can catch them at the federal court building. They're planning on meeting there at 5, so you can catch them either way if you want to be in the march or you want to just be there for the press conference. They would welcome any numbers.
Fantastic. And we hope we have some folks out there that might take some photos. If you're headed out there, if you're in our chat room, be a part of the show, be a part of the Voice of the Marijuana Nation. Get some photos there. If you have video capability, get that. And send me an email, Russ at ncr420.com, and we'll be glad to put that up on tomorrow's show for reporting on how well that funeral procession and that press conference went. But once again, here we have Melinda Hogg, the precognitive, who's able to detect crime before it happens. Once again, these kind of threats going out to landlords of all people, people that aren't even involved in the sales of marijuana. And this is a tactic that has been developed by the Justice Department because they've recognized that the people who are involved in the marijuana businesses, the dispensary owners themselves, are crusaders, and they're willing to be martyrs. They're willing to go down and fight for this. They realize that this is the will of the people, something that's been supported by supermajorities now for years. They're willing to fight for this. But the landlord just really wants to rent his property. He doesn't want to have a whole lot of problems with his tenants. He just wants to see that check coming in. They went for the weak spot, and it appears to be working because none of these landlords really want to go to bat for medical marijuana. That's not their gig. They just want to get their little paycheck. So it seems to me that the only people who are going to have the ability to try to put together a dispensary are people that own their own property, own their own buildings. And even then, they're going to get the threatening letters and get the seizures, and all of their life's work is going to go for naught because the federal government can't get its mind around owning up to the fact they've been lying about the medical properties of cannabis for 75 years now. It's time for this to end. No more lives need to be ruined over this. No more businesses need to be ruined over this. We've got to make this change happen.
The city of Wyoming, Michigan had passed a city ordinance by unanimous vote back in 2010 to keep medical marijuana out of their town of about 75,000 residents. Wyoming, Michigan, along with a dozen other townships in the state, had passed flat-out bans since 2008. The 2008 medical marijuana law was passed by 63% of the voters. After much pressure over the issue, the city council members said last year that they plan to uphold that ordinance and take it to the Supreme Court if necessary, saying that they would only trust safe distribution of medical marijuana to pharmacists, not by a licensed marijuana caregiver as the state law allows. The ordinance that they passed is so strict about where you can distribute medical marijuana that it turns out nowhere in the city qualifies as an appropriate place. John Terbeek, a lawyer and a Michigan medical marijuana card holder, filed a lawsuit over the ordinance, saying that the ordinance went directly against the will of the voters who approved medical marijuana. A Kent County Circuit Judge, Dennis Lieber, signed with the city earlier this year. Terbeek pushed on. This morning, that decision was voided by the Michigan Court of Appeals as they reversed Judge Lieber's decision. Terbeek says that Judge Lieber was acting more like a prosecutor enforcing the city's ordinance that it was actually only a hidden ban, not an actual ordinance. The 3-panel judges ruled unanimously that the city's ordinance does in fact conflict with the state's voter-approved Medical Marijuana Act. The court also firmly rejected the city's argument that the state law conflicts with the federal ban on marijuana. In their ruling, they point out that, quote, the federal drug law provisions do not preempt the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act's grant of immunity as found, because it is well established that Congress cannot require the states to enforce federal law. The court also wrote, thus, while Congress can criminalize all uses of medical marijuana, it cannot require the states to do the same. Accordingly, Michigan is not required to criminalize all uses of medical marijuana and the immunity afforded to the medical use of marijuana by state law. Now, we will be waiting to see if the city holds good on their promise to pursue this to the top court in the land.
I'm glad that's a part of the story, though. This is something that gets brought up many times by, your local county sheriff or some state bureaucrat that doesn't like medical marijuana. But it's illegal federally. It's against federal law. Well, yeah, go call a federal cop. So we have this thing in America, these different jurisdictions. You have to have standing to be able, it has to be something that's within your purview to be able to deal with. And it is not up to the states to enforce federal law. It can be said so many different ways, but that's basically what it comes down to. When it comes down to sheriffs, when it comes down to judges at the state, at the county, at the city level, their job is to deal with state, county, and city ordinances, not federal laws. But it really gets into their mindset, though. When you see them revert to that, but it's illegal federally, but it's against the law. When they revert back to that, this is the last refuge of these people that can't come up with a legitimate defense for why they want to put people in cages for their use of a plant, especially the sick and disabled people that are just trying to alleviate some sort of illness or disability through the use of cannabis. They have to just retreat to the drugs are bad argument that the federal government said so. Mommy and daddy, Uncle Sam said so. That's why it's so bad. This is what we continue to fight every day here at the Russ Belville Show and 24 hours a day on National Cannabis Radio until we beat it into their thick skulls that there's nothing wrong with the responsible adult use of cannabis, and continuing to try to stop it is a futile attempt to fight nature itself and the laws of supply and demand. It won't work. It can never work. We can't keep drugs out of our supermax federal prisons, and God himself couldn't make a prohibition stick on the apple. It's never going to happen, so knock it off. Let's recognize adult freedoms, deal with what little tiny harms there may be in a rational way, and try to keep it out of kids' hands by taxing, regulating, and checking some IDs.
And an update on a story that we've been watching unfold from the beginning of the month. An Ohio teenager has been the target of much media attention since authorities charged him with operating a large marijuana distribution ring. The young man turned himself into authorities earlier this month, just after his 17th birthday. Since his alleged crimes happened when he was 16 and younger, he is being charged in juvenile court. The entrepreneur teen now stands accused of selling high-grade marijuana to his classmates. Authorities estimate he sold about $20,000 worth of marijuana a month. His prices were in the $350 450 an ounce range. The teen had orchestrated 3 grow houses where police found over 600 marijuana plants. Now, at the time of his arrest, the teen had more than $6,000 of cash stashed in his bedroom. Yesterday, he made his first appearance in a juvenile court to face charges. We still do not know the young man's name due to his age. Judge Mike Powell warned him that the charges he was facing could land him in jail until he turns 21 years old, telling him that before he gave his guilty or innocent plea, that as he was sitting there, the state presumed that he was innocent and that it was up to the state to prove his guilt if he said he was innocent, and that if he admitted he was guilty, he was giving up all the rights that come with the trial. But the teen, described by reporters aloud in the courtroom as soft-spoken and very respectful, said that he did admit his guilt of the crimes of felony possession of marijuana and cultivation and trafficking. Now, that was an unexpected move from the defendant. Most court watchers were expecting a trial for the teen. Michael O'Neill, the teen's attorney, declined to say why the teen admitted his guilt today and declined to answer any further questions. The young man is now ordered to remain under house arrest until his sentencing next Monday. He's also being subjected to random drug tests. 7 adults are also being charged connected to the 3 grow houses that were raided. Today, the prosecution also pointed out that the teen had 6 other teens that sold marijuana underneath him. But because of their age, we do not know if they are being prosecuted in connection to this case. The Warren County Drug Task Force says that the teen was a significant source of the marijuana in 2 separate affluent Cincinnati area high schools.
Now, this is an interesting development in the story, because when this first broke, I had remarked into how savvy he was to be turning himself in before he turned 17, so that statutorily he would just be prosecuted in juvenile court. But now, upon hearing this, there was no. It doesn't sound from the story to me like it's any sort of plea deal or anything, that he's going to get any sort of leniency off of this, that he just maybe, I don't know, maybe this is an attack of conscience, that he feels like he did something bad and he needs to admit it. Carrie, did you get any other sources that kind of led to nothing that really reveals what's going on in this kid's head, huh?
Not really revealing. They did explain him. There were a lot of reporters, since they can't say his name or take any pictures. There were lots of descriptions of what we looked at. We know he's sort of skinny and that he looks like a typical skateboarder, and he dressed very nice for court. But we're just not really sure. Maybe he just wanted to get it over quickly, because Monday's coming up just within a week, and we'll know his sentence by next Monday.
Maybe he didn't want to subject his family to the trial. Maybe by not going to trial, he's trying to protect somebody he was involved with.
And I will tell you, Russ, that he turned himself in, but some of those grow houses had been being investigated for about a year. So if they hadn't quite made that point to raiding all of them, but they would, and maybe he knew that they were on to him. So it's all speculation at this point.
Yeah, we'll keep our eye on the story and find out how this develops, what happens in the sentencing, and maybe get some more info for you later, folks.
It's 420 back in Idaho, where Russ and Carrie were born. So we have to go connect with our Russ. You know what I mean? Please support these sponsors who support the Russ Belville Show.
All right, folks, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll get into some Irie Wednesday music. Wiz Khalifa going to bring that to you. And then at the bottom of the hour, we got Dr. Mitch taking your live calls and chat questions. Stick around. It's the Russ Belville Show. Be right back.
Know you talking to that reefer man.
The law offices of Omar Figueroa would like to remind you to stand up for your rights. Please do not give up your precious liberties. There's nothing wrong with standing up for our constitutional rights, and in fact, it's the only way to honor the Constitution that recognizes our natural rights. Treat law enforcement with respect and respect the Constitution by standing up for your rights. If you are detained or arrested, stand up for your rights by repeating, "I respectfully invoke all my legal and constitutional rights. I do not consent to any search and seizure. I want to remain silent, and I want to speak to my attorney, Omar Figueroa." Omar Figueroa has more than a decade of experience in federal and California courts and graduated from Yale University, Stanford Law School, and Trial Lawyers College. Please contact the law offices of Omar Figueroa at 415-489-0420 or 707-829-0215 or on the web at www.omarfigueroa.com.
Count your computer. Count your computer.
Warning. Hits taken on this show are larger than they appear. Do not try this at home. These people are professionals. Or at least they pay me to say that. Everyone knows music and marijuana go together, so let's wind up our 20 after break with the Russ Belville Show's Daily Toker Tunes, the best in pod-safe 420 music from around the web. Today is Irie Wednesday, featuring reggae, ska, and other world music genres. You can get downloads and more information about all our Daily Toker Tunes by visiting music.radicalruss.com. Now, sit back and enjoy your Daily Toker Tune.
All right, for Irie Wednesday today, I'm going to turn things over to Wiz Khalifa because the music today involves Hawaiian words and reggae words, and I'm sure to mispronounce them. So take it away, Khalifa.
Well, aloha, everybody. Today's song that we're going to bring to you is by Sia Osi, given name George Kakala Taolani, who is Samoan, but he was born and raised in Hawaii, as well as spent a lot of time in California. And he said that basically Sia Osi was always singing as a kid. His parents required him and his siblings to do something musical in order to do sports or any other extracurricular activity. With this requirement, Sia found himself in music programs throughout junior high and high school. And with his father being a punake, which is meaning composer for the church, it was obvious that music was and still is a meaningful priority in his family. Siosi's vocal talent was given, but his dabbling in many different instruments, including the drums, piano, bass, and guitar, was something he just picked up over the years. With an upbringing that was saturated in music, there was really any wondering why COC was ever chosen to be a music artist. And I don't think so. This guy's just absolutely amazing. I saw him a few weeks ago when he was in town at the Salem Red Lion Inn, of all places. It was just an amazing show, very intimate setting. Him and Fiji and the Hot Rain Band, got to hang out with all of them. And this was a song that he was playing when we were hanging out after the show. We went down to the little lounge in the bar of the hotel, and we basically stopped the lounge music that was playing, and he put up his little boombox, and this was his new song, and he ended up playing it and giving us a little sneak peek. But if you guys want to download the song, be sure to check him out at ciocmusic.com. This is his song, All I Need, featuring John Maoli, and I hope you guys enjoy it. This is COC. Check him out at ciocmusic.com.
Oh.
All right, well, we'll be getting that up here in just a second. We got a little miscue.
So sorry, I thought you were going to play that off of your laptop.
No, yeah, that's why I sent you the link.
I messed it up. All right, so we will get to that here in just a moment. Let me get some other music up while we wait for that.
We'll edit this out, don't worry.
Yeah, sure. This will be just taking
special features.
Special features. This is the way it happens.
Who's backstage? Here, take it.
This song goes out to Jerry Garcia and Bob Marley.
Happy birthday, Jerry.
All my friends are stoners, lighting up all of the time. Everybody has a mason jar. Can you guess what I put in mine? We all go to Jamaica once or twice a year to smoke big blunts with the Rasta man and drink ice cold red striped beers.
All right, guys, so let's try this again. This is COC featuring John Maoli. This is his song, All I Need. You guys should check him out at ciocmusic.com. Enjoy.
I tell you she's pristine, something like a queen, more of a lady than a majesty, yeah. All that I want, that I believe, she all the woman that I'll ever need. All the woman that I ever need. She all the woman that I'll ever need. She all the woman that I ever need. She all the woman that I'll ever need. Everything about you drives me crazy. Like when you speak, it sounds so amazing. All the little things that you do reminds me of how much I love you. Ooh, I'm so damn proud that you my baby. We have no such thing as maybe. Could it even be possible? You're the most wonderful creation that God made. Yeah. Something like a queen, more of a lady than a majesty, yeah. All that I want, that I believe, she all the woman that I'll ever need. All the woman that I ever need. She all the woman that I'll ever need. She's all the woman that I ever need. She all the woman that I'll ever need. Look up the definition of a real woman. You'll find a picture of your face, no doubt. Never thought fairy tales came true until the day that I met you. I swear you're the best thing that happened in my life. Would you be mine? Would you be mine?
Taking a woman, yeah. This is the part when me get on one knee and ask the question, will you marry me? It's a lovely vacation. Me not hesitate, cause me want you and I'm in life to be my wife, yeah. Promise to give you a love so true. Make every day feel like a honeymoon. Love everlasting, girl, me for real. And me want show you how I really feel.
Something like a queen, more of a lady than a majesty, yeah. All that I want, that I believe, she all the woman that I'll ever need. All the woman that I ever need. She all the woman that I'll ever need. She all the woman that I ever need. She all the woman that I'll ever need. You're the woman.
Hi, this is Dan Michaels. If you're looking for professional voice talent for your commercial or podcast, I'm your man. Visit danmichaelsaudio.com for more information.
Here are some of the things you may hear on the Libra Lounge. And now the news. Bitches got something to say.
If Obama wants to be Roosevelt, he has to end prohibition.
You heard it here on the Libra Lounge.
To visit here Wednesday nights at 6 Pacific. Or visit thelibralounge.com for archives and links to download current episodes. Be a lounger.
The Libra Lounge.
It's time for the Russ Belville Show's Cannabis Q&A with Dr. Mitch Earlywine. Dr. Earlywine is a professor of psychology at the State University of New York at Albany and a leading author and researcher on cannabinoids and health, who pins the Ask Dr. Mitch column for High Times magazine. Get your questions ready in our live chat or call in to 971-533-7111 now.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the show, and we've got Dr. Mitch Earlywine on the line. How you doing, Dr. Mitch?
Oh, pretty well.
Glad to have you here. And we're just getting ready to get some questions from our chat room. Folks, just log on to ncr420.com and get your questions in the chat. Cannabis Carry and Wiz Khaliqa will pick those up. We'll get them in here and ask for you. Or you can just dial in live at 971-533-7111. But we always start off by reporting on the latest in science and polling on marijuana. And I'm wondering if you have anything you'd like to bring up.
As you mentioned, there are new data published suggesting that cannabidiol, the beloved CBD, is as good a treatment as another accepted antipsychotic for folks with acute schizophrenia. The neat thing about this was that the side effect profile was so much better for CBD than for the standard antipsychotic. And having lived with in a halfway house with 10 schizophrenics, I can tell you this is a big issue as far as keeping folks on their medication. One of the biggest causes of second psychotic break is always going off the meds, and the meds often have some pretty aversive side effects. As we all know, cannabidiol really doesn't have those, and so this could be a real step forward as far as treatment of mental illness goes.
Dr. Mitch, this is Ganja John, and me and Khaliqa lately have been smoking kind of heavy CBD oil, and I can say anecdotally, when I'm really mad at my wife and I just am close to calling her a bitch or something, I'll take a hit of that oil, go sit in my room, calm down, and every problem seems so minute. And I'm not high; there's no THC in it whatsoever. But I'm finding like a washed over calming effect with that CBD, and I think it's super exciting that people are breeding these high CBD strains so we can try this stuff out.
It's just super. I mean, folks can log on to the Project CBD website, and you see, I mean, the names of these strains are sometimes kind of curious, monkey balls and silver dragon and things like that. Yeah. But in truth, that's just a product of marketing. These are all really spearheading some brand new stuff.
No, you know, I did a piece the other day where I read off this big long list of all sorts of these medications that are patented and marketed every year, and it's like a Scrabble board exploded with extra C's and X's. Right.
Yeah,
it's just, I mean, so the names of pharmaceutical drugs are silly as well. They're just not as colorful, I guess.
Yeah. In truth, some old marketing research suggested that both Z and X are very popular among patients, and so I'm looking forward to Zizix, whatever drug that will be.
New Zizix, it cures everything.
And if any of our listeners want to learn about that CBD stuff, I'm growing a lot of CBD heavy stuff. Shoot me an email, and I'll tell you about CBD Crew and their breeds and what they're trying to work with.
Yeah, and projectcbd.org, always a good source. You talked about one of the problems with people that have these psychotic breaks, these schizophrenic issues, is going off their meds and having that second break. And part of the reasoning behind that is some of the awful side effects of the conventional antipsychotics. What are some of those side effects?
One of the saddest has to do with basically a whole lot of muscle stiffness and then some uncontrollable jerky tic-like movements called tardive dyskinesia. And once you have that, you really can't get rid of it. And so for literally decades, we've had another drug to take whenever you're on the antipsychotic meds to try to battle that. And that drug, of course, has its own side effects. The dry mouth is outrageous. A lot of folks report some sexual dysfunction that just sounds really aversive. And, I mean, it's such a litany, and the individual differences are so vast. So one person can be absolutely fine with it, and the very next person can find it so horrid that it's intolerable, and physicians aren't accustomed to that. So sometimes they think that second person is kind of faking. It turns into a real drag.
All right. So good news then. More scientific confirmation of cannabidiol, CBD here, leading to improvement for these people that have these issues. The study is up on PubMed. For folks that don't know, if you're looking to find out what studies are out there and you want to do searches on cannabis or cannabidiol, there's a great government website. It's through the National Institutes of Health. It's called PubMed, and I think if you just Google PUBMED, PubMed, you can find it. And the abstracts at least are publicly accessible. If you want to get the full study, usually don't you have to be a subscriber or something, Dr. Mitch?
Yeah, or be affiliated with someplace that is, but odds are high the abstract is going to get you the big picture. And unless you're really interested in some of the obscure stats, that'll definitely get the message across.
Yeah, it's something, if you're thinking of being an activist on this issue, one of the best ways to rebut the prohibitionists when they say, well, there's just not enough studies. We need to do more studies. You say, well, gee, I just did a PubMed search on cannabis and found about 17,000. How many more studies do we need, Dr. Mitch?
Well, and in fact, when you think about the safety profile of the psychiatric meds that are out there, CBD is hardly anything to worry about.
All right. So we're taking questions in our chat room at ncr420.com, or you can call in live here at 971-533-7111. One of the issues that's happening now with respect to medical marijuana is we're seeing a lot of development now of cannabinoid pharmaceuticals, Sativex from GW Pharmaceuticals being fast-tracked to make it to U.S. markets. And there's also, politically speaking, some rumbling about perhaps President Obama, should he win a second term, having an evolution in his view on medical marijuana and maybe accepting a Schedule II designation for THC and cannabinoids. So I'm just wondering, Dr. Mitch, what would do you see that as possible, us moving to Schedule II? And, we have that Americans for Safe Access lawsuit that is, providing extra pressure on that line. Do you see us moving to Schedule II? If so, is that a good thing? Or is there a way to get off the schedule without having to go through 2, 3, 4, and 5?
As it turns out, I'm optimistic about this Schedule II thing, and it could be extremely naive of me, but what it really means is there's an opportunity for more research in a way that just has not been a possibility for the last 60 years. And I'm hoping that this happens. In part, I feel like a second term, many a president has said, okay, now I can sort of go with things without having to worry about re-election, and I think this could really happen. And really all it does is make it potentially available for research in a way that Schedule I drugs, because they're essentially as illegal as they can be, they just don't have that.
Okay. We have a question from our chat room here. Lively Libra would want to know about benefits of using a cannabis salve on a new tattoo rather than something like Aveeno.
It's an intriguing question, and pharmacologically it would make some sense that this would have some advantages over some of the standard treatments, in part because we know the anti-inflammatory effects of the cannabinoids more generally. The making of those salves I was skeptical years ago about, but in fact I'm finding it more and more compelling that this is a big opportunity, and the potential loss is so small. There really aren't any negative consequences to a cannabis-related salve, so I think by all means go for it.
All right, and we have a follow-up on that topical issue. Cannabis Carrie in our virtual chat room there, virtual studio, was asking about this as well. Carrie, did you want to bring that up?
Well, I was just asking, I remember you said something about it a year ago, but it just didn't sink in. So I was wondering again, can you get any psychoactive effects topically? I mean, can you ever get high from medicated lotion?
It's curious because it doesn't make a ton of sense that it would be available transdermally like that across the skin, but in fact, because THC and other cannabinoids are fat soluble, and the way some of these salves are made, it actually does have a lot of potential. Now, I will be the first to say that, if it's part of a massage, you've got a good alternative explanation for any changes in the subjective state, and the placebo effect is very real. But we're seeing time and again that folks really, really do swear by this, and on occasion, in large doses or full body exposure, do report some subjective effects.
Thanks for that. And sometimes we talk about this stuff, being out here on the West Coast, as if everybody knows what we're talking about. We say a salve, we're talking about like a lotion or a cream or like a balm. If you think of some of the salves I've seen are kind of like. Well, I don't want to say tiger balm or anything, but not hot like that, but more of a solid that you kind of have to rub to get onto your skin or whatever. But just generally a topical application, usually for people swear by it for like inflamed joints, swollen knees, and arthritic hands. A lot of people out here, a lot of patients out here are beginning to use that. One of the difficulties with that, especially if you're in a state that has a very small possession limit or is still illegal, is that the authorities will weigh the entire amount of the lotion or the salve or whatever it is you make and count that as the entire drug amount, and thus you get a worse penalty. So it's a lot harder to come by. People aren't willing to take that kind of risk in one of the illegal states, and it's just a shame. All right, let me get back to our questions. Looking in the chat room here at ncr420.com, Gothic Prophet wanted to know how can Sativex, etc., be a Schedule II drug when Marinol is a Schedule III drug?
In fact, it's completely senseless. That doesn't really register at all. If Marinol's already down to Schedule III, the less restricted category, and Sativex essentially contains the same chemical, this is ridiculous. It's also going to have comparable medical uses, and that's allegedly how we determine whether something is going to be in Schedule II, Schedule III, etc. And finally, I just feel like it's all politics, and it really points to how silly the whole scheduling system has become. So LSD is Schedule I, but you don't see a high addictive potential, for example. It just really, unfortunately, is one of those little political ironies.
Yeah, and given that Marinol's the synthetic THC that's in a sesame oil capsule, and the federal government originally had that at Schedule II and reduced it down to Schedule III, so it's in the middle of the scheduling there, I think along the same lines as anabolic steroids, if I'm not mistaken. But given that this is just THC and not cannabidiol, that we've now found with some of these new studies that show to have an antipsychotic property to it, shouldn't whole plant cannabis be at least Schedule IV in that it's at least it provides that CBD to counteract any psychoactive effect?
And so then, in fact, the potential for negative consequences, at least in that mixed spray, are lower than they are for Marinol. Whereas you hear people who say, Marinol essentially is just making them stoned to the bone and completely useless. I feel like that's a compelling case, and the idea of it as Schedule IV makes a lot more sense than any of these alternatives.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we're speaking with Dr. Mitch Earlywine, as we do every Wednesday here on our Cannabis Q&A, and want to remind you that if you're not wanting to put your question in the chat room or be public with it by calling in, you can ask your question privately through email. Dr. Mitch's email address is 420research@gmail.com. That's 420research@gmail.com, and you will get a response. We hope. You get a lot of emails, though, don't you, Dr. Mitch?
Indeed, I do, and sometimes I'm running a little bit behind, but all in all, I've gotten to everybody so far.
All right. Well, one final question as we go out here with respect to the Olympics. We just had yesterday Michael Phelps set the all-time record for most decorated Olympian. 19 medals, and now still eligible for 2-3 more that he could possibly get. And I'm just wondering, any comments you might have on the U.S. and the World Anti-Doping Agencies continuing to have marijuana in their list of banned substances?
It's so ridiculous because the spirit of this was supposed to be to avoid drugs that were designed to enhance performance. Now, I will admit, if there's a Twinkie at the end of the pool, I might swim a little faster. But bottom line is cannabis is not a performance-enhancing drug. This really makes no sense at all. And given what we know about anti-inflammatory effects, analgesic effects, and just general stress reduction, it seems silly to make, in a sense, our elite athletes have their hands tied with the availability of what could be a really helpful medication.
All right. Well, Dr. Minch, we appreciate you coming on the show every week here and giving us the facts and the chance for people to ask these questions because, they sometimes might be a little too shy to ask their own personal doctor. Where do you turn? We can always turn here every Wednesday to our Cannabis Q&A with Dr. Mitch Earlywine. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you next week.
Looking forward to it.
All right, when we come back, we're going to continue our legalization week with a look at legalization here in Oregon, offering the greatest degree of marijuana freedom of any of the 3 states offering a marijuana legalization initiative. Stick around, it's the Russ Belville Show. Be right back.
The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at RadicalRuss.com.
Georgia. Hi, this is Willie Nelson, and I need your help. Alcohol prohibition didn't work in the 20s, and marijuana prohibition isn't working today. It's time we stop arresting law-abiding citizens because they prefer marijuana over alcohol. Nearly 2,000 Americans are arrested every day on marijuana charges. We're unfairly destroying the lives and careers of hundreds of thousands of people each year simply because they smoke marijuana. These are not criminals. They're average citizens like you, good neighbors who work hard, raise families, pay taxes, and contribute to their communities. We need your help to end marijuana prohibition once and for all. It's the fair thing to do.
For more information, contact NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Call toll-free 888-67-NORML or visit their website at norml.org.
Cannabinoids and health.
Cannabinoids.
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 Why am I having trouble saying that?
Cannabinoids.
Oh, jeez.
Cannabinoids.
What a goof.
Flame on if you can. You're looking for that dope weed. Fire it up. Flame on if you can. You're looking for that dope weed. Pony Boy's a man. Flame on if you can. You're looking for that dope weed. Flame on, here's a lighter. If you burn blood.
You want answers? I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore. You want answers?
You have offended my family.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth.
And you have offended a Shaolin temple.
You can't handle the truth.
Surely you can't be serious. I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical Rant.
All right, welcome back, everyone. 49 after the hour. And for today's show, we want to continue our legalization week by taking a look at the 3rd state in our profile of states that are trying to legalize marijuana for adults 21 and over. On Monday, we spoke to Mason Tvert from the Colorado Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol. RegulateMarijuana.org is the website. Yesterday, we spoke with Allison Holcomb from New Approach Washington and the I-502 initiative. Today, we're going to take a look at the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act, and I encourage everyone to take a look at this as well. You can find their website at cannabistaxact.org or octa2012.org. And I think this is revolutionary in what we're proposing here in Oregon, where you find the other states, Washington and Colorado, have proposed legalization measures that have started with the idea of having limits and restricting how much freedom would be available under marijuana legalization, the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act of the three has taken the greatest step forward as far as marijuana legalization initiatives go. I just wanted to touch on some of the highlights of this and remind you that here in Oregon, you can register to vote, and we do vote by mail, so we'll be legalizing marijuana by mail. It's quite amazing. Now, the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act begins with a lengthy preamble, and this preamble has many things that by voting for it, the state of Oregon and the people of Oregon are going to declare to be true. And it's just wonderful in here that we have so much in here, so many facts about marijuana and hemp and our American hemp heritage, stuff that we've been telling you here on the Russ Belville show for, day after day, contained in the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act. We start with preambles about the state of Oregon and the people finding that cannabis hemp is an environmentally beneficial crop. And let's see, 5 points on the oil capabilities of hemp, the cloth and paper, fiber for paper and textiles, biomass, and also yields the cannabis medicine as well. The second set of preambles have to do with the people find that there's federal and corporate misinformation campaigns that are economically benefiting small groups of people to purposely suppress information about marijuana. And we've pointed this out numerous times that throughout history, we have denied our hemp heritage. We've denied things that, like George Washington, Alexander Hamilton, Thomas Jefferson being involved in hemp growing. It's stuff we know as the cannabis community, but the general public out there, has no idea about this stuff. And it'll be good that they are getting to know about this throughout the campaign and finding out some of the truth about marijuana here. They also point out Octa points out in the preambles here about cannabis being Oregon's largest cash crop, and prohibition has failed, and then proceeds in the preamble to list many different things that are not true about marijuana, the disinformation campaigns like the gateway theory, and that cannabis use causes very little impairment of psychomotor functions, or of any long-term use isn't a problem. So by voting for this, the people of Oregon will be recognizing these true facts that cannabis users are less likely to commit violent acts than alcohol users, and cannabis does not constitute a public health problem of any significant basis. There's no basis for treating cannabis any differently than alcohol. So again, we open up with the Cannabis Tax Act providing basically an education to the people of Oregon as they read through the voters' pamphlets and as they listen to the campaigns that are going to go on for the next few months here in the state of Oregon. And then of course there's reference to our 10th Amendment rights. There's reference to the herb-bearing seed quote in Genesis 1:29, showing that our banning of cannabis violates in our Oregon Constitution Article 1 Section 3 and Article 1 Section 33 by denying a natural religious right there. So again, a lot of this has been carefully thought through for a couple decades now of trying to get Octa on the ballot with respect to defending it in court against any sort of attacks that would come toward it. And in part of laying that defense, referencing the Oregon State Constitution in places there where it would seem to support our rights to privacy, our rights to religion, and so forth. Now, when we finally get past the preambles, we get to the actual law, Oregon Cannabis Tax Act, that will be enacted when the people of Oregon pass this. Of course, Octa is to operate uniformly throughout Oregon, fully replace and supersede all statutes, municipal charter enactments, and local ordinances about cannabis, except DUI and the Oregon Medical Marijuana Act. Now, it's kind of interesting. The Oregon Medical Marijuana Act will still exist, and the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act doesn't change anything about the Medical Marijuana Act. There'll still be a medical marijuana program. But it's going to be quite interesting to see how that program changes and how the registrations for that will change. I predict that when Octa passes, we're going to see many, many fewer people registering to be medical marijuana patients, many fewer people wanting to put their name on the list. And the reason being is that under the Oregon Medical Marijuana Act, currently a patient is limited to growing 24 plants and 24 ounces. So they can have 1.5 pounds of cultivated marijuana, and they can have 6 mature plants, capable of producing flowers, and 18 immature plants that are less than 12 inches. But under the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act, when Measure 80, as it is known now, passes, the personal use and possession and cultivation of marijuana is completely unlimited. That's right, completely unlimited. In the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act, it does specify that the personal use is not subject to limitation in here. I'm trying to find the exact listing here, but it's on their Cannabis Tax Act website. But basically, as long as you're not involved in commercial production, you're not involved in the buying and selling of marijuana, your personal cultivation will be unlimited. You could have your entire yard planted in cannabis plants, mature plants. You could have, 70 pounds of it in your home. So given that there would be no limit for any adult 21 and over, I don't see why anybody would want to sign on to the Medical Marijuana Act to just be at 24 ounces and 24 plants. Now, there would be one benefit to being a medical marijuana patient. Under the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act, when it passes, the dispensaries, the pharmacies, the stores, the Oregon Cannabis Commission stores that sell marijuana will be selling marijuana to patients at cost. So, in essence, being a medical marijuana patient would give you kind of a coupon when you go to the state marijuana store. You'd be able to get your marijuana cheaper. So there would be incentive for people that, say, wanted to get their marijuana at a lower cost, being that they're using it for medical purposes, to go ahead and get that card. But for it to be worth their while, it'd have to be worth going and get their medical records, paying whatever they got to pay at a clinic to get the doctor to recommend, and then paying $200 to the state to register their card. So they would have to be buying, I guess, a significant amount of marijuana over the space of a year for that expenditure of $200 plus doctor fees plus everything else to be worth the while. It'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. And this Cannabis Commission is another thing that's been brought up. This is another part of the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act. This is in Section 2, where it says the new state commission will be created called the Oregon Cannabis Commission. It will ensure, it'll regulate the sale of cannabis and cultivation of cannabis for sale, and shall assure the high quality of cannabis grown and processed under the Act. The Cannabis Commission shall consist of 7 commissioners. Initially, the 7 will be appointed by the governor for a term of 1 year. And then after they've put together the rules and the systems and the licensing, from that point thereafter, every year thereafter, 5 commissioners are going to be elected at large by the growers and the processors who have been licensed. So basically, 5 out of 7 votes will be elected directly from the people who are growing and processing rather than being appointed by the governor. Now, the critics have pointed out that seems like you're asking the industry to regulate itself. They'll be able to self-appoint the people that are part of their oversight. I think it's fine to have people involved with the Cannabis Commission who actually know something about growing cannabis, know something about what the people that are having to be involved with this business have to go through. It's not like your most standard businesses, so I think it's a good thing that we actually have people involved with it that know what they're doing. There's also within the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act no change to the DUI laws in Oregon. The same DUI laws that exist right now will still be in existence when the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act, when Measure 80 passes in November. So we'll have exactly the same enforcement of any sort of, worries about people driving stoned, which again, at the beginning of the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act, the people of Oregon, when they vote for it, recognize that marijuana doesn't really impair your psychomotor performance that much anyway, and isn't a serious public health risk. So being worried about whether or not there'd be DUIs out there, and especially when the law is going to remain the same, is not something that we really have to give any worry to at this point. Now, this Oregon Cannabis Commission, also the 5 of 7 votes that the growers are going to pick, will set the price and sell through Cannabis Commission stores, which will be kind of like liquor stores and a much better way of running our cannabis sales. We'll have ID checks for youngsters. We'll have 21 and over only can get in the stores. And to my understanding, these Oregon Cannabis Commission stores, they'll set the price. This is in the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act. They'll set the retail price of cannabis to generate profits for revenue to be applied for the purposes listed in OCTA, and to minimize incentives to purchase cannabis elsewhere or to purchase cannabis for resale or removal to other states. So the commission will have to set a rate here that is high enough enough, the price will have to be high enough to discourage people from wanting to take it across the state line and make great profit from it. So we'll see what that price ends up being. I imagine it's going to have to be less than what, or maybe close to what the prices are right now. But that's some of the information on the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act. You can find more by going to cannabistaxact.org. And we'll continue to bring you coverage of the Oregon Cannabis Tax Act through the weeks and months to come, up until leading to election, so that you have all the details you need to know when voting yes on legalization. For Ganja John and Wiz Khalico and Cannabis Carry, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you in hour 2 for Toker Talk Radio. And until next time, take care of each other, Tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at radicalruss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth.